Apparently, discovering your husband's been funding your best friend's lifestyle for 4 years isn't covered under for better or worse. My name is Della Whitmore, 36 marketing manager in Charlotte, North Carolina, and until 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, my biggest crisis was whether the $12 sourdough at Whole Foods was worth the moral superiority it provided at neighborhood potlucks. Then my phone pinged with an email from a sender I didn't recognize. Your husband Conrad is hiding a Chase account. Check transfers to Shelby Garrett. Shelby Garrett. My best friend since sophomore year at Myers Park High. My maid of honor who held my bouquet with trembling hands and swore she'd always have my back, 10 years ago. The same woman who held my other hand at the clinic in 2020 when I miscarried at 12 weeks, while Conrad was supposedly at a critical audit in Raleigh. She brought me Thai takeout and wine and stayed until 3 in the morning watching Parks and Recreation reruns because she knew Leslie Knope was my comfort character. And Conrad, my husband of a decade, financial controller at a mid-sized manufacturing firm, Mr. Honey, we really need to cut back on Target runs every time I bought decorative throw pillows, was sending her $6,000 every single month. I sat there in our king bed, surrounded by the Pottery Barn duvet Conrad said was an unnecessary expense, staring at my phone screen like it might rearrange itself into something that made sense. It didn't. I padded downstairs in my ratty Duke sweatshirt, made coffee in the French press Conrad insisted was more cost-effective than Starbucks, and opened my laptop. Here's the thing about marrying a financial controller. They're meticulous about security, but predictably uncreative. His Chase login password? His mother's birthday. Not mine. Never mine. Barbara Whitmore, patron saint of passive-aggressive comments disguised as helpful suggestions, got password immortality. I logged in. There it was. A checking account I'd never seen before. Monthly transfers of exactly $6,000. Posted like clockwork every 5th of the month since March 2021. The reference line read, SG Consulting. Shelby didn't have a consulting business. She was a personal trainer at the LA Fitness off Providence Road, posting workout videos on Instagram between client sessions and complaining about how hard it was to build a brand on a trainer's salary. I did the math. March 2021 to October 2024, 44 months, $264,000. While I drove a 2015 Honda Civic with a check engine light that had been on for 6 months, because Conrad said it wasn't sensible financially to upgrade. While he vetoed the kitchen renovation I'd been planning for 3 years, because we needed to be more conservative with spending. While he suggested I pick up extra freelance work if I wanted to join the yoga studio downtown because memberships add up. I took screenshots, every single transfer, every date, every reference number. I saved them to 3 different cloud drives, emailed them to myself, and texted them to my work phone. I wasn't taking chances. Then I sat back and thought about confronting them, screaming, crying, throwing his clothes on the lawn like they do in movies. But here's what a decade of marriage to a financial controller teaches you. Emotion is expensive. Drama is satisfying for about 90 seconds, then you're left with the mess and zero strategic advantage. So I didn't confront anyone. I called my divorce attorney instead. Margaret Harrison had handled my colleague's divorce 2 years ago, the one where her husband tried hiding assets in his brother's name and ended up paying through the nose. I left a voicemail at 7:13 a.m., probably sounding way too calm for someone whose life was actively imploding. Conrad had been in the shower while I uncovered his secret accounts and took screenshots, singing off-key to something that sounded like Tom Petty, completely oblivious that I'd just discovered his betrayal. He kissed my forehead on his way out at 7:45, reminding me we had dinner with his parents on Saturday. I smiled, said I was looking forward to it, watched him back out of the driveway in his sensible Toyota Camry, the one we bought because luxury cars are just throwing money away. Margaret called back at 8:02 because good attorneys know that early morning voicemails mean money. I explained the situation in 4 sentences. She didn't gasp or offer sympathy. She said, "Don't delete anything. Don't confront him. Come to my office at 2. Then I went back to the email. The anonymous sender. I needed to know who'd handed me this bomb and why. I'm not a hacker. but I've worked in digital marketing long enough to know how to track an IP address. Took me 40 minutes and 3 YouTube tutorials, but I found it. The email originated from a business address in Charlotte. Corporate internet provider. I cross-referenced with LinkedIn. Paxton Forensic Auditing. Desmond Paxton, founder. His profile picture showed a man in his late 30s with dark hair and the kind of serious expression people get when they spend their days uncovering financial fraud. His specialties: asset tracing, hidden accounts, divorce investigations. His location: Charlotte, North Carolina. I searched his name with Shelby's. Nothing came up directly, but I went to Shelby's Instagram, because of course I did. Because apparently I'm a masochist who needs visual confirmation that my life is a dumpster fire. Scrolled back to March. There it was. A photo of her left hand with a diamond ring. Caption: he asked, I said yes. Tagged user: Desmond Payton. Engagement photos throughout March. Then nothing after April. No wedding photos. No more couple posts. By June, all traces of Desmond were scrubbed from her feed. They'd broken up. And somehow, between the breakup and October, he'd decided I deserved to know my husband was bankrolling his ex-fiance's lifestyle with my marital assets. Margaret's office was in South End, one of those converted warehouse spaces with exposed brick and plants that cost more than my car payment. She reviewed my screenshots, made notes in her leather portfolio, and looked at me over her reading glasses. This is clean, she said. Clear financial infidelity. Dissipation of marital assets. North Carolina is an equitable distribution state, which means you're entitled to compensation for what he's been hiding. How do you want to proceed? I want everything, I said. The house, alimony, his retirement accounts. I want him to feel exactly as financially secure as I've felt driving that Civic with a check engine light for half a year. She smiled. Not a warm smile. A shark smile. I can work with that. But first, we need to make sure this is documented properly. Can you access any other accounts? I could. Over the next 2 hours, Margaret walked me through pulling records from everything. Joint savings, his 401k statements, tax returns from the past 5 years. Conrad had been meticulous about tracking expenses, which meant I had a paper trail of every time he'd denied me something while funding Shelby's Instagram-worthy lifestyle. Margaret scheduled a forensic accountant. Filed a motion to preserve assets. Started drafting divorce paperwork. She told me not to tip my hand. Let him think everything's fine. It gives us time to make sure we've caught everything. I left her office at 4:30, drove home, made dinner, chicken piccata, Conrad's favorite because I'm apparently committed to this performance. He came home at 6, loosened his tie, kissed my cheek, and said the chicken was perfect. How was your day? He asked. Oh, you know, I said, refilling his wine glass. Just another Tuesday. The next 3 days were a masterclass in performance art. I smiled through Conrad's morning routine, nodded sympathetically when he complained about his boss, and even laughed at his terrible jokes over dinner. Meanwhile, Margaret's forensic accountant was dissecting our financial life like a coroner with a particularly interesting corpse. His name was Russell Torres, and he had the energy of someone who genuinely enjoyed spreadsheets. He called me Thursday afternoon with updates delivered in the monotone of a man reading baseball statistics. Your husband's been very creative, Russell said. The transfers to Shelby Garrett are just the headline. There's also a credit card you don't know about. Capital One, opened March 2021, same month the transfer started. Balance of $42,000. Statements show charges at restaurants you've never been to, hotels in Charleston and Asheville, jewelry stores. Jewelry stores, I repeated flatly. Tiffany & Coner, October 2022, $3,800. Want to guess what your anniversary gift was that year? I remembered. A card. A nice card, actually, with a heartfelt message about how lucky he was to have me. I'd told myself the thought was what mattered, that material things weren't important, that we were being financially responsible. A card, I said. Meanwhile, Shelby got a Tiffany bracelet. Posted it on Instagram November 5th, 2022, with the caption, treating myself. 3 heart emojis. I pulled up her Instagram while Russell kept talking. Scrolled back to November 2022. There it was, the bracelet. Silver. delicate. Exactly the style I'd shown Conrad 2 years before when he asked what I wanted for our anniversary. He'd said we couldn't justify luxury purchases right now. Apparently, we meant you. There's more, Russell continued. He's been manipulating your joint account. Small transfers out, 200 here, 500 there, into the hidden Chase account before sending it to Shelby. You've been funding your own betrayal through grocery money and utility payments. I felt something crack in my chest, but it wasn't sadness. It was closer to the sound a frozen lake makes right before someone falls through. Cold, sharp, final. How much total? I asked. Including the credit card debt with accumulated interest, gifts and transfers? North of $310,000 over 44 months. Could be more if there's anything else hidden. $310,000. While I'd been clipping digital coupons and buying store-brand cereal because Conrad said we needed to be more conscious of spending, while I'd put off getting my car's transmission checked because it could wait another few months. Saturday arrived. Dinner with Conrad's parents at their place in Myers Park, one of those old-money neighborhoods where the houses have names and the HOA has opinions about mailbox colors. Barbara Whitmore answered the door in a cashmere sweater set that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. "Della, darling," she said, kissing both my cheeks like we were in a European film. "You look tired. Are you getting enough sleep?" Translation: "You look terrible. What's wrong with you?" "Just busy at work," I said, smiling. "Big campaign launch next week." Conrad's father, Richard, was in the living room watching a college football game with the volume at a level that suggested either hearing loss or a genuine desire to avoid conversation. Conrad handed him a beer and settled into the leather armchair that would someday be his, apparently, since Barbara mentioned it every single visit. "That chair's been in the family for 3 generations, Barbara said, right on schedule. "Conrad will inherit it along with the dining set and the china cabinet." I nodded politely, thinking about how Conrad's inheritance was going to be substantially reduced by the alimony payments he'd be making me for the foreseeable future. Dinner was prime rib, Barbara's signature dish, which she'd perfected over 40 years of marriage to a man who believed silence was a virtue and football was a religion. She served it with Yorkshire pudding and roasted vegetables, plating everything with the precision of someone who'd taken a Williams-Sonoma class in 1987 and never deviated from the formula. "So, Della," Barbara said, cutting her meat into identical small pieces, "when are you two going to give us grandchildren? You're not getting any younger." I'd been waiting for this. Barbara asked this question at every family dinner, like a subscription service I couldn't cancel. Usually, I deflected with vague comments about timing and career goals. Tonight, with 310,000 reasons to be petty, I decided honesty was more fun. "We tried," I said, meeting her eyes. "I had a miscarriage in 2020. Conrad was in Raleigh for work. Couldn't make it back in time." The table went silent. Barbara's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Richard actually looked up from his prime rib. Conrad turned the color of the Yorkshire pudding. "I didn't know," Barbara said quietly. For once, she actually sounded human. "I asked Conrad not to mention it," I lied smoothly. "Didn't want to worry you." Conrad reached for my hand under the table. I let him take it, even though touching him felt like holding a dead fish. Barbara recovered quickly, pivoting to safer territory. The church fundraiser, the neighbor's daughter's wedding, the scandal involving the couple down the street who were getting divorced. "So messy," Barbara said, shaking her head. "Nancy told me he'd been having an affair for 2 years. 2 years, and she had no idea. Can you imagine being that oblivious?" "No," I said, sipping my wine. "I really can't." After dinner, while Conrad helped his father move furniture in the garage, apparently Richard had finally decided to organize the space after a decade of threatening to do so, Barbara cornered me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. "I want to apologize," she said, "about the grandchildren comment. If I'd known about the miscarriage—" "It's fine," I said, because it genuinely was. Barbara's casual cruelty was almost comforting in its predictability. She treated everyone like they were slightly disappointing houseplants. "Conrad's a good man," she continued, which was rich coming from someone whose son was currently embezzling from his marriage to fund his mistress. He works so hard. Sometimes I worry he doesn't get enough appreciation at home. There it was. The pivot. The subtle implication that whatever problems existed in our marriage were somehow my fault for not sufficiently worshiping the ground Conrad walked on. He's very appreciated, I said, closing the dishwasher with more force than necessary. Trust me. Sunday morning, Shelby texted me. Coffee this week? Feel like we haven't connected in forever. I stared at the message for a full minute. The audacity. The sheer breathtaking audacity of this woman who'd been taking $6,000 a month from my husband while still maintaining our friendship like nothing was wrong. Who'd posted Instagram stories from boutique fitness retreats and organic juice cleanses funded by my grocery budget. I typed back, absolutely. Wednesday at 10? Our usual spot? Our usual spot was Amelie's French Bakery in Park Road Shopping Center, where we'd been meeting for coffee since before she became a personal trainer, and back when I still believed my best friend wouldn't sleep with my husband for money. She replied with a string of heart emojis and, can't wait. Neither could I. Monday morning, I did something I should have done the day I got that anonymous email. I called Desmond Paxton directly. His receptionist put me through after I said, tell him it's about Shelby Garrett. He picked up in under 10 seconds. Ms. Whitmore, he said. His voice was deeper than I'd expected, with the kind of careful precision you develop when your job involves testifying in court. I wondered when you'd call. So you did send the email? I did. And before you ask why, because someone needed to know what your husband and my ex-fiancé were doing. Neither of them was going to volunteer the information. Coffee? I said. Tomorrow morning. I need to understand the full picture. He named a place in Dilworth, a neighborhood halfway between both our offices. Said he'd be there at 9. I hung up and immediately texted Shelby to reschedule our Wednesday coffee to Thursday, citing a work emergency. She sent back a sad face emoji and said Thursday worked great. Tuesday at 9, I walked into Summit Coffee on East Boulevard. Desmond was already there, sitting at a corner table with a black coffee and a leather portfolio that screamed, I document everything. He stood when I approached. Old-fashioned manners that felt almost startling after a decade with Conrad, who'd stopped making any real effort around year 3 of our marriage. Thank you for meeting me, I said, sliding into the chair across from him. Thank you for not calling the police when you tracked my IP address, he said, and I caught the hint of a smile. That was impressive, by the way. Most people wouldn't have bothered. Most people aren't married to financial controllers who hide over $300,000 in affairs. His expression hardened. 310? I only found evidence of around 216,000 when I was doing our premarital financial review. Credit card debt, I explained. Hotels, restaurants, a Tiffany bracelet. My forensic accountant found it last week, plus accumulated interest on the card. Desmond opened his portfolio and pulled out a folder. I made copies of everything I found. Figured you might need them for your attorney. He slid it across the table. Shelby's bank statements from our joint planning account. Deposits match your husband's transfers exactly. She told me they were consulting fees for online fitness programs she was developing. She doesn't have online fitness programs. I know that now. He leaned back, jaw tight. We were supposed to get married in September. Venue booked, deposits paid, 200 guests invited. I found the deposits in February while organizing our finances for the wedding planning. Confronted her in early March. Asked her about them. She cried, said it was complicated, that Conrad was helping her through a rough time financially, and it wasn't what I thought. What did you think it was? Exactly what it was. An affair. Emotional, financial, probably physical. I didn't stick around to collect evidence on that last part. He took a long drink of coffee. Broke the engagement that night. She called me paranoid, said I was throwing away our future over nothing. Spent 2 weeks blowing up my phone, then went silent when she realized I wasn't coming back. I studied him across the table. Mid to late 30s, probably 38 or 39. Dark hair with just enough gray at the temples to suggest competence. The kind of man who wore a pressed shirt on a Tuesday morning because standards mattered. Why tell me? I asked. You didn't know me. You could have just walked away. Because I spent 6 years with someone I thought was honest, he said quietly. And when I found out she wasn't, I realized your husband had been lying to you even longer. You deserve to know. If the situation were reversed, I'd want someone to tell me. Someone did tell you, I pointed out. Your own due diligence. Fair point. He almost smiled again. What are you going to do? I told him. All of it. The divorce paperwork Margaret was filing, the forensic accounting, the plan to document everything, drain our joint accounts into a separate account Margaret had helped me open, and serve Conrad papers at the most strategically devastating moment possible. I'm also meeting Shelby for coffee Thursday, I added. Thought I'd see if she's capable of honesty when confronted directly. She's not, Desmond said flatly, but I admire your optimism. We talked for another hour. He told me about finding the deposits, about the arguments that followed, about Shelby's complete inability to take accountability for anything. I told him about the years of financial manipulation, the miscarriage Conrad couldn't be bothered to come home for, Barbara's passive-aggressive commentary on my failure to produce grandchildren. Your mother-in-law sounds delightful, he said dryly. She's a peach. Really looking forward to her face when she finds out her golden boy's been embezzling from his marriage. I want to be there for that. You want to be there when I tell my mother-in-law her son's a cheater? No, Desmond said, serious now. I want to be there when you expose both of them publicly. Not for revenge, though I won't pretend that's not part of it, but because Shelby needs to face actual consequences for once in her life. She spent 36 years skating by on charm and excuses. Someone needs to hold her accountable. An idea started forming. Dangerous. Dramatic. Absolutely the kind of thing Margaret would tell me not to do because it was emotionally satisfying, but legally unnecessary. I told Desmond anyway. Our 10th wedding anniversary is November 2nd, I said slowly. Saturday. I was planning to file for divorce that week and serve Conrad papers quietly. But what if we did something bigger? A party. Invite both families, close friends. Make it a celebration. And then we show everyone exactly what they've been doing. Financial records, receipts, everything. Public humiliation as an appetizer, legal consequences for dessert. Desmond considered this for approximately 5 seconds. I'm in. What do you need from me? Show up. Bring your evidence. Be willing to tell everyone exactly what you found and why you ended your engagement. Shelby's still telling people we grew apart. I've seen her Instagram captions. Time for the truth. We exchanged numbers. Made plans to coordinate with Margaret, who I suspected would have strong opinions about this strategy but would ultimately recognize its effectiveness. As I stood to leave, Desmond stopped me. Della, he said. Thank you. For what? For not shooting the messenger. For being willing to actually do something about this instead of just suffering quietly. He met my eyes. Your husband's an idiot. I hope he realizes that when you're done with him. Thursday morning, I met Shelby at Amelie's. She was already there, wearing Lululemon that probably cost $200, approximately 3% of one of Conrad's monthly transfers. She hugged me like we were still friends, like she hadn't been systematically destroying my marriage for profit. You look amazing, she lied. I looked exhausted, actually, because I'd been up until 2 a.m. coordinating with Margaret and Desmond. So do you, I lied back. New workout gear? Treating myself, she said, exactly like the Instagram caption for the Tiffany bracelet. Finally got enough clients to justify the splurge. The lies came so easily to her, smooth, practiced, like she'd been rehearsing this performance for 44 months. We ordered. She got an almond croissant and a latte with oat milk. I got black coffee because I'd lost my appetite somewhere around $310,000. She talked about her training business, her new apartment in South End, her plans to launch an online coaching program. I'm really getting my life together, she said, eyes bright with what I might have mistaken for sincerity if I didn't know she was funded entirely by my husband's embezzlement. Finally feel like I'm building something real, you know? That's wonderful, I said. You've worked so hard. I didn't confront her. Didn't mention Conrad or the transfers or the fact that I knew exactly how she was affording her splurges. Just smiled and nodded and let her spin her web of lies. while I mentally calculated how satisfying November 2nd was going to be. When we said goodbye, she hugged me again. "Love you, babe. Let's not wait so long next time." "Absolutely," I said. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." The next 2 weeks were a performance worthy of an Oscar. I played the devoted wife planning a surprise anniversary party while Margaret quietly filed divorce papers and Russell finished his forensic analysis. Conrad suspected nothing. He came home to pot roast and asked about my day, blissfully unaware that his day was about to become considerably worse. I'd rented a private room at the Ivy, a restaurant in South End with exposed brick and Edison bulbs, and the kind of atmosphere that screamed tasteful celebration. Invited both sets of parents, Conrad's brother and sister-in-law, my cousin from Raleigh, and 10 of our closest friends. Told Conrad it was a surprise anniversary party for us, that I'd been planning it for months, that I wanted to celebrate our decade together properly. "You didn't have to do all this," he said the night before, looking genuinely touched. "This must have cost a fortune." "You're worth it," I said, which was technically true. He was worth approximately $310,000 of marital assets I was about to reclaim. Shelby got an invitation too, of course. "Wouldn't be a party without my best friend," I'd told her over text. She'd responded with enthusiasm and asked if she could bring a +1. I'd said absolutely, knowing she wouldn't find anyone on short notice and would show up solo, exactly as I needed. Saturday arrived, November 2nd. Unseasonably warm for Charlotte in fall. 72 degrees and sunny, which felt like the universe's way of saying, today's going to be memorable. I wore a burgundy dress Conrad had never seen before. Bought it with my own money at Nordstrom the week I found out about his betrayal. If I was going to destroy my marriage, I was going to look devastating doing it. Conrad wore the navy suit I'd bought him for our 8th anniversary, back when I still thought we had a future. The irony wasn't lost on me. We arrived at the Ivy at 6. The room looked perfect. White tablecloths, fall flower arrangements, a projector screen I'd told Conrad was for showing a slideshow of our best memories. He'd loved that idea. Thought it was romantic. Meanwhile, Russell's forensic report was queued up on my laptop, ready to display 44 months of financial infidelity in crisp, undeniable detail. Guests arrived in waves. Barbara and Richard first, because Barbara had never been late to anything in her 63 years. My parents came next, Dad in his dependable khakis and Mom in a floral dress from Talbot's, Conrad's brother Marcus and his wife Lauren, my cousin Jade, our friends from the neighborhood, the couple we played board games with monthly, the co-workers we'd invited to maintain appearances. Shelby arrived at 6:40, wearing a dress that definitely cost more than my first car. She hugged us both, congratulated us on 10 years, and told me I looked gorgeous in a tone that suggested she was surprised by this development. At 7, Desmond walked in. Shelby saw him first. Her champagne flute actually slipped from her fingers. One of the waiters caught it before it shattered, which was unfortunate because I'd been looking forward to that metaphor. The color drained from her face so fast I briefly worried she might pass out. "What's he doing here?" she hissed at me. "He's a friend," I said sweetly. "You remember Desmond, right? Your ex-fiancé?" Conrad looked confused. "I didn't know you knew Della's friend Shelby," he said to Desmond, which was rich considering Conrad knew Shelby considerably better than any friend should. "We were engaged until March," Desmond said calmly, shaking Conrad's hand with the grip of someone who lifts weights specifically to intimidate financial controllers. "Until I found out she was receiving $72,000 a year in unexplained deposits from someone else's husband." The table went silent. Conrad's face did something extraordinary. Went from confusion to recognition to absolute panic in under 3 seconds. Shelby tried to excuse herself to the bathroom. I blocked her path. "Stay," I said. "We're about to start the slideshow." I walked to the front of the room, laptop in hand, connected it to the projector. The screen lit up behind me, currently showing our wedding photo. Conrad in his tux, me in white, both of us young and stupid and believing in forever. "Thank you all for coming," I said, voice steady. "Conrad and I have been married 10 years today. A decade of partnership, trust, and shared financial responsibility, which is why I thought tonight would be the perfect time to share exactly how our finances have been managed. I clicked to the next slide. Bank statements appeared. 44 months of $6,000 transfers, highlighted in neon yellow. This is Conrad's secret Chase account, I continued. The one he opened in March 2021. Every month on the 5th, he transferred $6,000 to Shelby Garrett. That's my best friend over there in the Reformation dress. For a total of $264,000 over 44 months. Barbara gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus stood up, staring at his brother like he'd never seen him before. But wait, I said, channeling every infomercial I'd ever seen. There's more. Next slide. Credit card statements. There's also a Capital One card I didn't know about. $42,000 in charges. Hotels in Charleston. Restaurants I've never been to. A Tiffany bracelet for $3,800. My anniversary gift that year was a Hallmark card. Shelby tried to leave again. Desmond stepped in front of the door. Shelby told me these were consulting fees, Desmond said to the room, for an online fitness business she was developing. When I asked for business documentation, she said I was being controlling. When I asked why the deposits matched Conrad's account activity, she said it was coincidence. That's when I ended our engagement and sent Della proof of everything I'd found. Conrad, Richard said, voice hard. Is this true? Conrad opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Shelby, who was crying now. Real tears. Probably the first honest thing she'd done all evening. Looked at me. Della, I can explain. No need, I said. I've already filed for divorce. You'll be served papers Monday. My attorney's quite confident I'll get the house, alimony, and half your retirement accounts. Plus reimbursement for the over $300,000 you stole from our marriage to fund your girlfriend. Barbara stood up, gathered her purse, and looked at her son with something I'd never seen on her face before. Genuine disappointment. Richard, we're leaving. They walked out without another word. Marcus followed, Lauren throwing an apologetic look over her shoulder. One by one, our guests filed out, some offering me sympathetic hugs, others just fleeing the wreckage like rats from a sinking ship. Within 15 minutes, only 5 people remained. Me, Conrad, Shelby, Desmond, and the waiter who was absolutely going to dine out on this story for years. You destroyed everything, Conrad said finally, voice breaking. No, I corrected. You did that. I just made sure everyone knew about it. Shelby tried one last time. Della, please let me explain. Explain what? How you took my husband's money while pretending to be my friend. How you held my hand through a miscarriage while sleeping with the father. Save it. I've heard enough lies to last a lifetime. Desmond and I walked out together, leaving them in the wreckage of their own making. Outside, the November air felt crisp and clean, like the world had been washed new. That was extraordinary, Desmond said. That was necessary, I corrected. Then, drink? Absolutely. We ended up at a bar in Plaza Midwood, processing the evening over bourbon and sheer adrenaline. 2 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen. Correction? My house. Since the judge granted me full ownership in the divorce settlement. Drinking coffee from a mug that says, "Nevertheless, she persisted," that Jade bought me as a post-divorce gift. The irony isn't lost on me. The divorce finalized in January. Conrad kept his Camry, his embarrassment, and a monthly alimony payment of $4,000 for the next 5 years. I kept the house with its $340,000 in equity, half his 401k, and my dignity. Margaret called it one of the most satisfying cases of her 20-year career, which I choose to interpret as a compliment. Conrad moved to an apartment near the airport, one of those beige complexes where the walls are thin and the neighbors are temporary. I saw him at mediation once, looking smaller somehow, like humiliation had physically diminished him. He tried to apologize. I told him to save it for his therapist, assuming he could afford one on his new budget. Shelby's doing about as well as you'd expect for someone whose entire social media presence imploded overnight. The story spread through Charlotte's fitness community faster than gossip at a PTA meeting. She lost roughly 60% of her clients within 2 weeks. Turns out soccer moms have strong opinions about personal trainers who sleep with their friends' husbands for money. Last I heard, she moved to Asheville to start fresh, which is what people say when they mean escape the consequences of their actions in a place with better hiking. Barbara called me once in December, actually called to apologize, which might have been the most shocking plot twist of this entire disaster. She said she'd misjudged the situation, that she'd always thought Conrad was perfect, and that she was deeply ashamed of his behavior. I accepted her apology because holding grudges is exhausting and because I genuinely think she meant it. She sent me a Christmas card. I didn't send one back, but I didn't throw hers away either. Growth, apparently, is incremental. The video from the anniversary party didn't go viral. I wasn't stupid enough to post it publicly. But it circulated privately among our social circle with the efficiency of a suburban phone tree. I became simultaneously a cautionary tale and a folk hero, depending on who you asked. The women at book club treated me like I'd slain a dragon. The men avoided eye contact at neighborhood gatherings. I'm fine with both reactions. Desmond and I started dating in December, carefully and slowly, like two people who'd both learned what happens when you rush into things. We have dinner once a week, text daily, and maintain a respectful distance from anything resembling serious commitment. He makes me laugh. He shows up when he says he will. He paid for his own coffee the first 6 times we went out, until I finally told him I wasn't Conrad and he didn't need to prove anything. Last week, he helped me pick out a new car, a Tesla Model Y, because after years of driving a Civic with a check engine light, I decided I deserved something that didn't make concerning noises on the highway. Conrad texted me when he saw it in my driveway during his scheduled visit to pick up mail. "Really, Della? A Tesla?" I didn't respond. Let him do the math on what $4,000 monthly for 5 years would have bought him instead. I'm back at work, running campaigns and pretending my personal life isn't more dramatic than anything I could create professionally. My boss gave me a raise in January, said I'd shown remarkable resilience during a difficult time, which is corporate speak for, "We know your husband was cheating and we're impressed you didn't burn anything down." Sometimes people ask if I regret the public exposure, if I wish I'd handled it privately, quietly, like civilized people do. The answer is absolutely not. Conrad and Shelby spent 44 months lying to my face, stealing from our marriage, and manipulating everyone around them. They earned their humiliation the old-fashioned way, through sustained, deliberate betrayal. I just made sure they received it with an audience. The house feels different now. Lighter, somehow. Despite being exactly the same square footage. I repainted the bedroom, went with a deep navy blue Conrad would have hated, and bought new sheets with the absurdly high thread count he always said was wasteful. Got rid of the Pottery Barn duvet, donated it to Goodwill along with most of his books and the ugly coffee table his mother gave us as a wedding present. Here's what nobody tells you about divorce. It's not the ending, it's the intermission. The part where you catch your breath, assess the damage, and decide what the second act looks like. Mine looks like Tuesday morning coffee with someone who actually shows up. A career I'm good at. A house that's mine. Friends who proved their loyalty by staying, and the clarity that comes from watching fair-weather people scatter. Would I change what happened? Obviously, yes. But would I change how I handled it? Not for anything. Some lessons cost $310,000. Mine came with evidence, witnesses, and the satisfaction of watching 2 people face actual consequences for once in their entitled lives. And honestly, that's priceless.